Hey everybody, welcome back to the Corporate Finance Academy. Today we're going to talk about, in finance, how to interview. So this is a guide to hiring better FP&A and accounting employees on your team. All right, so we're going to go through how to interview. And again, this is for folks who are hiring somebody or going through the hiring process, not necessarily for somebody who's looking for a job, although this is a good interview. This is a good video for those folks to watch because this may give you some insight into how an employer might think about the interview. So why are we here? It's all about people. If you are somebody who wants to advance your career, whether it's in FP&A, accounting, corporate finance, anywhere within the world, the higher up the chain you go, the more difficult it is for you to succeed on your own abilities. So it doesn't matter how well you know Power BI or Microsoft Excel. As your organization gets bigger, the people that work under you, you will not succeed unless you have good people on your team. So if you want to have good people on your team, you have to hire good people. You also have to develop your people and retain them, but that's a topic for a different day. This is about hiring good people. So you need to interview, and if you're going to interview, you need to prepare for it. Many managers, in my experience, do not take the time to prepare, to think about what or who they really want out of the job. They don't prepare the other people who are going to interview, and this is a huge miss. People kind of forget that they have to interview, they bring them in, they're not sure what questions to ask. We're going to talk about some of the ways you should approach that alternatively. Okay, so quick peek at the template. So I'm a numbers person, and I think it's good to have numbers to it. So we're ultimately going to use this template, which is going to outline the most important items, some critical requirements, describe them, and then we're going to rank. All the interviewers are going to rank. But the way this works is the very first thing you have to do is you have to think through what you want out of the role, and ultimately you want to get to a point where you have just maybe 4, 5, or 6 different requirements of the role so that everybody who's interviewing the potential candidates knows what you would like out of the hire. So one of the first things to think about is, what is the subject matter scope of the job? Do you really know what the role is going to do? Is it an FP&A role where they're going to do the budget process, they're going to do forecasting, they're going to do monthly reporting or quarterly reporting, they're going to do help with IR scripts or whatever it is? Think about what those are and define them. And the other thing is, sometimes, depending on how big your organization is, you need to think about, are these fixed? Are these the absolute things you need? Or is your organization big enough where if you get somebody more experienced, more talented, you can have them do more? And if you get somebody who's or less experienced with more potential upside, you can shrink the role, make it a little smaller when they come in, and then expand the role as they get their feet under them. It's helpful to know that as you go through the process. What skills do they need? So is it heavy in Excel? Does it need to be, is it a controller where they don't have a lot of folks around them and they need to have great technical accounting knowledge? Do they need more advanced things like R, Python, or Power BI? Are they going to be automating things? They also have to think about who are they going to work with? Do they need to communicate with the C-suite? Do they need to work with a particular set of ops people or sales people or engineers? Because working with those different people, you have different personalities that you might look for. What do you already have, not have? I think people miss this sometimes, and many managers have a tendency to try to hire people that are similar to themselves. But what you want to do is think about, what do you already have? So if you have a highly analytical team already, do you want somebody that is more strategic? You also should think about your own personal gaps and development opportunities. If you are somebody who is not particularly detail-oriented, you're hiring an FP&A person, maybe you want them to be very detail-oriented because they can complement your skill set. And then what else? I mean, there's 100 other things you should think about. You should take the time to think through them. What else do you need out of the role? How might somebody succeed in the role? And the other thing you have to do at the end of this is, who should interview? So should it be somebody should you have somebody from the commercial team, the ops team? I like to make sure I have somebody who's higher than them in the organization, a peer, and you also may think about having somebody lower in the organization. So somebody who would potentially work for this person if it's a finance manager job. So again, going back to the template, once you think through that, what you want to do is you want to put these critical requirements in, list them. You want to have a description, and then you are going to rank their importance. And we'll show you that again in a minute in the spreadsheet. But this is just to re-ground you on what we're working towards. So as you go through the process, that first steps that we just talked about, you're going to define the requirements, you're going to figure out who's going to interview. Then you want to sit down, schedule 30 minutes with the interviewers, and you sit down and review the roles and responsibilities, what that person will be doing, all those things you thought about, and you want to share with them the Excel template with the critical requirements that you've outlined. Now, each interviewer then should then do an independent interview and score them independently. You don't want to lead them. If you've already talked to the candidate, you shouldn't go to somebody who has not yet interviewed and say, hey, this person's great. You want to make sure everybody's forming their own opinion because you don't want to lead them to a conclusion that they wouldn't have gotten on their own. Then once everybody's finished their interviews, they should be sending you their results as they do it, but you have to make sure you don't look at it because you also don't want to be influenced by what they see. And then you consolidate the scores and review, and then what you're going to do is schedule 30 minutes to go get back with the interview team and then try to decide. And you may or may not do that with them. As the hiring manager, you may reserve the right to go back and think about it before you pull the trigger, but you're going to regroup with them, talk to them, talk through with their scores, get the context around the scores they gave and why they did it, and that will help you make your decision. Okay, so let's jump to the template. All right, so this is the template, and this is a blank one. But what you're going to do is you on your own are going to fill in these critical requirements. And you can see some examples that I have in here. For this one, there was fit with the team and ability to influence. There's problem solving, creativity, leadership and execution, project management, process improvement, finance and accounting acumen. And then each of these talks through what exactly this person needs to do. And for this particular role, this was around transformation and process improvement. So you can see why this might be a little bit different than an FP&A role. So you would outline these and you put the relative importance. Now I'm going to flip to the full summary here. And you get your weighting. You put your weightings in here. And the way I do this is I rank these, but then I talk to the other interviewers, and we may shuffle these around and change the importance. And then we put the weightings in to reflect them. So you can see here, and you can play with this. You can figure out what the right weightings are. There's no perfect way to do this. And then as you go through, everybody's going to fill out, as they interview, how they rank these individuals. So they're going to put a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, with 5 being the best, in for each of these. And they're going to do that, which is very analytical, very quantitative. But then here, this gives you the chance to be a little more qualitative. So you maybe rank somebody better over here, but then when you think about who you really want to work with and who the best person is in your mind, you may just say, you know what, I like this person better. I think they'd be a better fit with the team. And I personally have a no assholes policy that I try not to make sure we have anybody on the team that drives a negative culture. So that might be part of it. You may say, look, this person had all these skills, but I just don't think they would work well with everyone. So everybody's going to do that. What the summary is going to give you is a weighted score based on these weightings to say who was the best. So the highest score would be the best. So in this case, Paul is 20.5, but it's pretty close between these three. And then the other thing that this does is it says, okay, well, what was the average forced ranking? So everybody had to do these forced rankings, a little more qualitative. And here, Paul again beats everybody else with these two a little bit farther behind. So from an analytical standpoint, you would say Paul is the winner, and you've got a number 2 and number 3 who are both very close to each other. So this would say, again, quantitatively, this is the winner. But you have to work with the team and say, hey, is Paul our guy? Is Paul the person that we would like to hire? Obviously, this template can be customized with more, if there's more interviewers or there's more folks that you're interviewing, change the weighting. But this is a great way to baseline yourself. And the most important part of this isn't necessarily the scoring, although that's a good way to do it, but it's really taking the time to think about what you want out of the role. So you need to hire better if you want to be successful. People are key. So remember the lessons here. When you go to hire your next person, take some time, think about it, have a method to your madness. And in future video, we can talk a little bit more about what questions you want to ask and what you want to try to, how you get to understand some of those critical requirements if the person has it or if they don't. So we've got that. We'll come out with a future video on that. That's all we have for today. Please like the video. If you haven't already subscribed, do that. Go to our website, subscribe to our newsletter. We're always adding content there. And if you have questions, please leave them